Good evening. My name is Rachel Griffin, and I want to welcome you all here tonight. Those of you that are here with us, and also those of you that are listening and live streaming us from the web. Tandem Press and the Jazz Studies program at the Mead-Witter School of Music at the University of Wisconsin-Madison are pleased to present the fourth year of the Tandem Press Friday Night Jazz Series. This series is made possible with the incredible support of the Brittingham Fund, and the live streaming is brought to you by Audio for the Arts and the generous support of Kathy Chazen and Larry Miller as well. This program could not have happened without Johannes Wallmann, the John and Carolyn Peterson Chair in Jazz Studies, and his colleagues John Schaefer, Jonathan Greenstein, Nick Moran, and Les Thimmig. I also want to thank the incredible music students as well for playing tonight. And the program will feature the Jazz Composers Group, directed by Les Thimmig, and the Afro-Cuban Jazz Ensemble, directed by Nick Moran. And then during the intermission as well, we would hope that you will look at our latest exhibition in the gallery downstairs, which is Allison Sarr, printmaker. We just installed that today, so it's brand new. And also feel free to stroll through the gallery and see what we're up to in the shop as well. And another note, Tandem Press is also open on Saturdays from noon to 4 as well. And for those of you at home at Intermission, you will see an interview on upcoming events at Tandem as well. So enjoy.
Blues, 3, 4. Buzz, you set?
Yeah.
Okay, band, you set? Sure.
Yeah.
All right. Rolling. Okay, 2 bars in. 2, 2, 3. you all very much. Welcome to our show. Usually when we come over here, we play all by ourselves, but as added treat tonight, treat for us at least, we're all going to share the evening with our wonderful UW Afro-Cuban Ensemble, led by the estimable Nick Moran. He'll be on the second set. But we are Jazz Composers Group, and we're here for the first set. So we open with Little Blues to stretch out on. Oh, and did we stretch? We call that one Tiger's Eye, kind of in a left-handed way, named for my father. That was his favorite, so he wore a ring of Tiger's Eye all the time. I'm going to go slow things down a little bit right now with some. We're going to get back to kind of maybe some old-time shuffling, the way they did back in the 20s and the 30s. The shuffle was a dance. You know, there's two kinds of dancing. If you were stepping, that means your feet actually got off the ground. But if you're shuffling, your soles of your shoes never left the ground, right? And that when you shuffle that way, that also, if you go southwest, your hips go northeast, and that made for a very good kind of dancing. Everyone liked, and everybody loved, the musicians loved the shuffle, and the dancers loved the shuffle. And one version of it was called the strut, right, like that. And we also love to dip into some of the slang from the old days. We love the slang of the present day too, but we collect the old time slang. And they had a particular name for wine that was of, say, the not exactly top shelf vintage, right? Maybe the bottom shelf. They used to call it Sweet Lucy, right? The kind that's sold for 70 cents a bottle, right? And musicians also use that as a technical term for somebody's tone, right? They'd say, well, how's that new saxophone player over in so-and-so's band? He plays okay, but you know, his tone is just a little bit Sweet Lucy. Yeah? Yeah. So this is for those players with that kind of a tone, and also our testimony to the patron saint of cheap wine. We call this one the Sweet Lucy Strut. Okay, it works. Ooh. I can't find the rhythm section when we're on a straight line there, right? Over here. All right. Here, 1, 2, 3, and. Hello. Yes, yes, yes. Hello. I'm talking. Talk, 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 talk. Hello. Talk, 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 talk. Oh, we're there. All right. All right. My rich baritone now rips through the entire room. All right. Okay, fine. Thank you very much. For those of you who were here our last time here, that was just a few weeks ago. All right? It was the first week of December. Usually, it's become a pattern with us that we come over here right at the end of each semester, right around May 1st, or maybe right around December 1st, as we did at this last semester. But our whole performance schedule is got turned upside down this semester. There's a conspiracy, bookings here, bookings at UW, guests at the school, and people interviewing for jobs. It was just one of everything going on. So we're playing everything at the wrong times this year. So we're here after just a few weeks, and school just began last week. And so you'll understand that we always pride ourselves at always bringing a fresh repertoire of things for your pleasure. Just in case some of you are repeat offenders around here. We hope you are, that's for sure. So I hope you'll excuse us if we're going to bring one back that we played in December, right? A couple of you came up afterwards and said you particularly like this. We say, okay, good. We're just going to give that an instant replay. There's only so much new stuff we can learn in a short time, right? So this is something from kind of a groove that originates in Brazil. It's you all know the word samba. But in the late 50s, kind of a new twist on the samba, kind of a slower, prettier version came in. And it was called the bossa nova. And bossa in Brazilian Portuguese, it was mistranslated actually as beat. They say, oh, that's the new beat. No. Bossa is, it's the word for bump. And the whole idea is, I got a bump on the head and it gave me a new idea. A new idea flew into my head. So it's actually a new bump here, is the bossa nova, kind of a prettier, slower version of the samba, right? So here, we call this one the Drifting Night. thank you once again. All right, that was kind of slow and pretty. We're going to play something else is also slow-ish, but quite a different mood. This isn't quite so pretty as it is maybe ominous, right? The title of this next song is "This Is Ames, Mister," which is a line from one of the great movies in the history of Hollywood. Maybe some of you are familiar with, from 1960, a movie titled The Hustler, starring Paul Newman, right? Jackie Gleason, George C. Scott, marvelous. And so this is taken from kind of the scene, this very, very beautiful scene when Fast Eddie, that's Mr. Newman, arrives at Ames Pool Hall to take on Minnesota Fats. He drove all the way across the country from Oakland just to get to New York. And of course, Ames is a very thinly disguised version of McGurr's, which is a famous pool hall, 45th Street, right near Times Square. And where I used to go once in a while. I'm no great pool player, but I used to love to watch all the hustlers and the stars and so on. And so Fast Eddie gets there early in the morning before there's any action at all. And he goes over to the person running things and gets a table and he says, "Hey, could I have a beer?" And the guy says, "No bar, no lunch counter, no candy machine, no shuffleboard. Just pool. This is Ames, mister." Fast Eddie walks in. "Yeah, this is Ames, mister." And we see for the first time what a little punk he is. And then they mop up the floor with him that night. Right? So it's great. So we try to capture that mood of the pool hall early in the morning before the action starts. And this is Ames, mister. All right, once again, getting down to the bottom of our program. It's about time to say hello to everybody in the band, right? Over on my right, your left, our drummer, Mr. Teddy. Yeah. And our bassist making his first appearance with us. He just joined the band last week. Nick Moran. Now going all the way over to your right, on trombone and mute, Mr. Kyle. Trumpet and flugelhorn, equally this concert, I think, is Mr. Nate. And my saxophone partner is Ben. Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much. So we just had a couple of quieter tunes. Maybe we'll heat it up a little bit in anticipation of Nick's band. We are really going to heat it up, right? We purposely laid back a little bit to let you enjoy their energy a little more, right? We're going to steal something from the repertoire of the great Duke Ellington. That this goes back to about 1941 or so, and there was a television, I love it, radio comedian back in the 30s and the 40s, whose name was Stumpy Jones, right? And he was very popular for several years, right? Had a show kind of a Will Rogers kind of gentle humor, and so Mr. Ellington had a little bit of fun with his name, with his tune. So it's kind of what we call a blowing vehicle, what the Ellington band would have to give the brass section a rest a little bit so everybody could play a little solos and there's not a lot of ensemble and so on. So tipping his hat humorously to Stumpy Jones, he called this one Stompy Jones. I think they had. We on? We on? Hello? Sorry. Okay, we're on, yeah. I think they had more fun back in the 40s. You know? Life isn't so much fun today. That was a romper. Okay, that's it for us tonight. So please give us a few minutes to get ourselves out of here and get Nick's wonderful band in here, and you're going to have a real treat right now. I heard a rumor that he's got a special guest coming in too. I don't know, that may be fake news. I don't know. Anyway, the Le's going to be here. Thank you very much.
Well, I want to thank you all for coming tonight. I want to thank Les Thimmig for leading his wonderful group of students in the Jazz Composers Group. We're absolutely delighted to be collaborating with the Mead-Witter School of Music and the Jazz Studies program. So thank you so much. The students were amazing tonight, and we're so grateful. So I just want to let you know that for the next 13 to 14 minutes, you can explore downstairs where we have Prints on View and our latest exhibition, the Alison Saar exhibition. Alison Saar is an African-American artist from Los Angeles, and there's a wonderful show of her work on in our Apex Gallery. And you can also walk through our studio. And then come back for, as Les said on several occasions, Nick Moran's amazing group of Afro-Cuban Jazz. But I do want to say, Les, you totally, and your students, totally heated it up in advance of Nick arriving. So we greatly look forward to the second half of this show, and thank you all for coming. Stay warm.
It's my pleasure once again to talk to you, Paula. Paula Panczenko is the director of Tandem Press, and I'm always learning new things about what Tandem Press is up to. And you guys, it's such a wonderful artistic outlet if people make use of it, and we're hoping they will, because you have some interesting artists coming in late winter and spring. Tell us what you have going on.
So we have 4 major artists coming in over the next several months. We will start next month because it's very hard to get anyone to come in January.
I wonder why.
And we have an artist called Caledonia Curry, and her moniker is Swoon because she started off as a street artist.
Okay.
And she will be coming in on the 20th of February and staying through the 3rd of March and making editions of prints.
Okay.
She was first very attracted to coming to Tandem because she realized we made large prints. And then she came to visit us at the print fair in New York a couple of years ago, and she saw so many small prints that she started making small prints. And after a week, she walked to the back of our studio and saw our big, large press and said, "Oh my goodness, my plan was to make large prints." So I think she's coming back this time, and she is going to make large prints.
Okay.
And so we're very excited about that.
And let me follow up on that. How rare is it? Because you've mentioned this before, that Tandem Press can do large prints. So it makes me feel that is at best less common, and maybe even we could call it rare. Is that the case?
It is. I mean, we can make a print 10 feet high.
Wow. Okay.
And 4 feet wide. Or we can, more normally, we have made prints that are 8 feet high and 4 or 5 feet wide. And then more commonly, we've made prints that would be 6 by 5 feet. And all of those are very substantial if you generally think of the size of a print. So we're not really quite sure what she's going to do because she's hectically busy traveling the world. She's also an installation artist. She paints. She had a major show at the Brooklyn Museum a couple of years ago. And she's also a wonderful humanitarian. And so after the terrible earthquake in Haiti, she and her friends decided that they had to do something. So they actually hired an architect who advised them not to bring in any materials to help the people of Haiti, but to use the materials that existed in that country itself. and to rebuild with those materials. And so they built a community center in a small town. They're building houses there. And she set up a foundation called the Heliotrope Foundation. And she and many of her artist friends contribute their work, and all the proceeds go to the foundation to help people in Haiti.
And why were they urging her not to bring materials in?
Well, this particular architect felt bringing in materials from an outside of the country would go against using the natural materials of the country itself, and that they would sustain any future hurricanes or weather conditions in a much better way than those who are bringing in materials from the outside.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah. It was very, very advanced thinking. They did a lot of research on the architect, and they they still are working there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I imagine it's endless.
Yeah, very much so.
In a very poor country like that. So when someone like Swoon comes in, does the public get to see, obviously they get to see the artwork that is produced. Is there an opportunity to actually see the art being produced? Is there a process viewing that is part of that, or is that ever part of the
Yes.
package?
What we often do is we have the artists give lectures at the Chazen Museum of Art, and then people can see that. But when she was here a couple of years ago, she did a talk. This time we have invited the art department to bring some classes over so that the students will get the opportunity to meet someone like that.
Okay.
Anybody who would like to come to Tandem, we can give a guided tour. So we're open to the public every day, and if it's more convenient to make an appointment in case as the days go by, so towards March 3rd, there's generally a great deal of tension about getting things finished. So it's probably better to come closer to the beginning of a visit rather than later.
Okay.
Because everybody, it's full gear, full engines ahead at that stage.
All right. So keep your visit early on and don't wait until panic mode sets in.
Exactly. And feel free to call us, and we would be delighted to give anyone a tour.
Yeah, and that's a great thing, because I've gotten tours of the place, and I have learned so much. I'm a music guy, and so I've learned so much about the visual art world through working with you, and it's great. I feel like a smarter person, which is always a great thing.
Well, we're happy to have you.
Thank you. Who else is going to be coming to visit?
Well, we're bringing in the Irish artist Mazer again. He also started off as a street artist like Swoon, and he did 2 very large prints on the last occasion he was in Madison, and we're not really quite sure what he's going to do this time. He's planning a new body of work. He's having exhibitions coming up in London this summer. And he's just come back from a 3-week, vacation in Patagonia. And so he loves, like yourself, being in nature and camping and hiking and all of those things. But he also has done a very interesting thing as an artist in his own right. He has set up a gallery, and he is promoting what artists whom he considers are not getting enough exposure. Okay. And so he opened that in Dublin before Christmas. And in addition to that, he helped the Irish president with his electoral campaign. And the president met him at an event and was very taken with his work and his huge following with younger people, which he has. Mm-hmm. And he said, I need the president in Ireland is 70, and he ran for another 7 years because everybody was so fond of him. And he's also a poet in his own right. And a president in Ireland is really more like a head of state, not a very non-political position. But he really wanted Mazer to help, so Mazer did a print that he sold and all sorts of items, and really encouraged younger people to vote for this man.
Wow.
And the president did a poem around a piece which he did.
Nice.
So he's a really interesting person.
Wow.
And a lot of people in Madison are already very familiar with him.
Okay. Oh, that's terrific. Wow. Yeah, incorporate art and an artist into politics.
Yeah.
I love that.
Exactly.
That's terrific. And when is the Mazur visit?
We think it's the end of March. We're
Okay.
not quite sure. He got a great opportunity in Japan, but he's trying to keep to the last week in March with us.
Okay.
But if it's not that, it will be shortly thereafter.
Okay. And after Mazur?
After Mazur, we're bringing in this wonderful young African-American artist. His name is Derek Adams. And one of the great things that happens at Tandem is that we work with artists who then recommend artists who we would never get otherwise. So the artist Micheline Thomas, who we've worked with over the years, and we're just completing a new print with her, strongly recommended him. And we were so excited about that. He does a form of portraiture, but he also does installations and video installations. And he deals a lot with the imagery of himself. And that will be his very first visit. So he's also teaching. So he will only come in probably for about 5 days. And when an artist comes in for a very short period like that, we may have to bring him back, which will be fine. So we're all very happy about that. And that's very exciting. And that will be in April.
Okay.
And then following that, we will have an artist who we have worked with since 1992, Suzanne Caparel, and she was born in Puerto Rico. She lived in California for many years, and then she lived in New York. And she always travels with her husband, who is a fiction writer.
Okay.
And they come with their dogs and lots of materials to make editions of prints. And she really is one of our most popular artists. So she is returning. Okay. And then in the summer, I know you asked me about the winter-spring program.
Well, let's keep going.
We have an artist called Richard Bosman, who also was one of the very first artists who worked with us. And we're going to be doing a monoprint workshop, and we're going to have him working on monoprints too as one of our visiting artists. So people who want to join the workshop will also have the opportunity to work with a professional artist like him in conjunction with 2 members of our staff, Rachel Griffin and Jason Rule.
Oh, terrific people. And please explain briefly what we mean by monoprint.
A monoprint is a one-of-a-kind print.
Okay.
And generally what happens is an artist will draw or paint with ink on a piece of plexiglass, and then the paper is put on top of that, and then it goes through the press, and the image transfers from the plexiglass to the paper just one time.
Okay.
Thus the word monoprint.
Okay. So is it by choice that it is run one time, or can it physically only be run once and then that's it?
It's definitely by choice.
Okay.
Generally, there is some ink left on the plate, which is called a ghost.
Yeah, so I think I've heard of this.
You
So
could
can-
actually fill it in again and run another one, but it still would be different because there would be different levels of ink, different textures perhaps.
Right.
The colors might be changed a little bit. So generally, it's in that way it's different.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of ghost prints, and they're really interesting. I think in some cases they can be more interesting than the original, but it's all art. It's
It's all art.
Yeah,
Exactly.
got its own personality.
Exactly.
Terrific. Is there anything else you want to tell us about before we go back to the second half of the concert?
Well, I think we should just remind the audience that our jazz concerts are coming up again this year. And the first one this spring will be on the 1st of February. And everybody is welcome, and it's free. And if you can't come, thanks to you, it's being recorded and can be broadcast. You can listen to it on your computer, which is very exciting. And we're very happy to do that again. The 2 people who will be playing with the students on the 1st of February are Les Thimmig and Nick Moran.
Okay.
So
now, just as an aside here, will this be? This is kind of off camera, but are we off the record? Are we running this during that concert? Because in that case, we wouldn't want to promote the concert.
I think so.
Yeah, I think this is to run during the February concert.
Yes.
Okay, so we don't want to say it's coming up in February because it'll be airing. People will be seeing it
Sorry,
during that.
thank
Yeah,
you.
no problem. I just wanted to make sure we
Sorry.
were clear on that. So what you can do is say promote. Then you've got one in March, right?
Right.
Okay, so let's promote the March concert.
Okay, now, what is the date of the March concert?
Is it the first Friday?
Yeah.
What's the first Friday in March? Can you look that up
I think
quickly,
it's the 5th.
Mr. Gilfillan?
Researching.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
Goofball.
Yeah, it's just always weird to kind of think ahead and try to imagine
Yes,
that we're in the
sorry.
context. But that's why I said before we go back to the second half.
March 1st.
Thank
March
you.
1st.
Okay. So,
yes, well, the next thing that we should just mention is that next month, on the 1st of March, we will have our second concert of the spring season. And we'll have lots more news at that concert. And we will have members of the faculty at the University of Wisconsin Jazz Studies program leading students in a wonderful performance yet again.
terrific. Thank you so much, not only for these conversations, but for bringing these artists in. Not only you visual artists, but you bring in these student musician artists, and I feel like this is what makes Madison such a special place to live. Organizations like Tandem Press, who broaden our horizons and just make the quality of life that much better here.
There are so many things happening. You're so right. It's so exciting.
It is. Paula Panczenko, Director of Tandem Press. Thanks so much. It's always great to talk to you.
Thanks, both. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody, to the second half of the Friday Night Jazz series at Tandem Press in conjunction with the Jazz Studies program at the School of Music at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. We are thrilled to have our second half with the wonderful students from the University of Wisconsin, led tonight by Nick Moran. This is the Afro-Cuban Jazz Ensemble, and I hear it's going to get really, really hot. So without another word, I'm going to turn it over to these fantastic musicians. Thank you so much for coming.
Before we play that first note. Can you guys hear me? Oh wait, sorry. It's all right. Before we play that first note, we're actually going to start with a tuning note of B flat. Mitch, if you don't mind. We also want to thank, before we start, we want to thank Paula Panczenko and Tandem Press, the wonderful staff here, for doing this series, inviting us to perform. And while you're in the clapping mood, please give yourselves a round of applause for being out on a Friday with us here. We made it. So as advertised, this is the UW Afro-Cuban Jazz Ensemble. All the music you'll be hearing it was either created in Cuba or composed by musicians from Cuba. And so, as they were saying, we can heat up things. But one of the beautiful things about art and music is that not only is it a great conduit for transmitting ideas, but it also has an element of teleportation. So, for these next 5 tunes, let's all teleport ourselves to Cuba. So don't look outside. It's actually just dark out there, so there's no snow. If you want to dance, people in Cuba dance all the time, so please help us with that. But our job as musicians will be to help you teleport, but join us in this journey to Cuba. We're going to start with a tune called Mambo Influenciado, written by Chucho Valdés, the great piano player and composer from the seminal group Iraquere. This is mambo that's influenced by jazz. Are we teleporting yet? Feel it? Feel some heat? All right. This next tune is one of the best vehicles for what is Afro-Cuban jazz. A conga player, rumbero, someone who plays rumba from the streets of Havana, came to New York City in like the 30s and started working with some of the best big bands at the time. And he partnered up with Dizzy Gillespie. And together, Chano Pozo, this artist, and Dizzy Gillespie together wrote this song called Manteca, which is Spanish for pork fat, lard. But if you guys are any chefs out there, you know that with that base, you can make some really delicious things. So this is a tune entitled Manteca. 2, check. All right. That last tune was a tune entitled La Patria del Son. Son is an extremely popular and important music in Cuba, the roots of which we know now as salsa, but really it came out of the eastern province of Cuba, the Oriente province, around Santiago de Cuba in the Sierra Maestra mountain range. It's basically country music. It's folk music. And that's what you heard was a sample of that. That was a tune that actually John Santos and his group, the Machete Orchestra, popularized. And that included Cachao on the bass. And how about for Aiden Steer on the bass? This is his first concert with us. So we're going to switch it and go back to the mambo era. As Dr. Thimmig mentioned, we had 2 weeks in the semester, and one of which got snowed out. So we were borrowing from a little bit of last semester's repertoire, and the students here picked their favorite song that we played last semester. So I think this is it. This is out of the mambo number songs, this is probably the least or the lesser known of the 2 mambo numbered songs. So this is mambo number 8, for those keeping track at home, popularized by Pérez Prado. Like to take this moment because mambo is very horn heavy to introduce our horns. So please welcome on the trumpet, Ethan Bernstein. On trombone, Mr. Will Campbell. Yeah, Will! On tenor saxophone, Matthew Kwai. Oh man, I'm horrible with names. But how about it for Beatrice Lawrence on the trumpet? I don't know why it's and I'd like to feature this alto player on this next composition. This is another tune popularized by a member of that group Irakere we mentioned before. This is a tune that popularized by Paquito de Riviera. So in that role, please welcome Nick Burkhout on the alto saxophone. How about one more time for Nick Burkhout on the alto saxophone? We'd like to introduce the rhythm section now, starting way over there on the drums, Mr. Kai Linsenmeyer. On percussion, Jordan Kowalski. Also on percussion, Teddy Williams. On guitar, Mitch Dulzen. And one more time for Aiden Steer on the bass. Yeah. This is actually Will on trombone and Aiden's first performance with the Afro-Cuban Ensemble. And after one rehearsal, can we give them a round of applause for pulling it together? 1.5. All right, so as advertised, we'd like to introduce a very special guest for this next song. We are going to do a tune entitled La Charanga. A charanga ensemble is a specific ensemble in Cuban music that we don't actually have currently. Charanga ensemble would be flute and strings, actually, as taking the part of the horn section, along with the percussion that you'll be hearing. So we do know a very good flute player, a piccolo player, in fact, and from our days playing together in the group Mari Salsa, we used to play this song pretty regularly. So it's really hard to do this song without this next individual. So please put your hands together for, on piccolo, Dr. Les Thimmig.
Thank you all for coming. We really appreciate it. So I cannot thank Nick Moran enough, and the special guest, Les Thimmig, and these incredible students from the Jazz Studies program at the UW School of Music. So hopefully on March 1st, it's going to be a little warmer than it was tonight, but the music was hot, so who cares about the weather? But we look forward to seeing you back here again next month if you have the chance. And again, thanks to the students. Unbelievable music tonight.